Even in the big 2025, we're still unsure about some key parts of Security Breach, one of the biggest being what happened to Glamrock Bonnie. Plenty of people have made theories and attempts on trying to solve where exactly he disappeared and why. I myself have tried on 2 separate occasions. Recently, there was a Reddit post that had an incredibly strong argument I had not heard before, but suddenly, all of that has been blown out of the water due to a fairly descripted portfolio post. I'm not kidding. Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. So what did we know about Glamrock Bonnie to do all of this theorizing with? Well, in Security Breach itself, the information of Glamrock Bonnie was interesting but admittedly sparse. We had this drawing, which seemed to be of Glamrock Bonnie. We had Bonnie Bowling, which had a lot of memorabilia about him, but only of an original design of Bonnie, not Glamrock. And we got these very few messages from the duffel bags. The first one, security report, being 12:24 a.m. Bonnie is seen leaving his green room in Rockstar Row heading east toward the atrium. 2:40 a.m. Bonnie enters the East Arcade. 4:12 a.m. Bonnie enters Monty Golf. And we also had retheme. Management report. The bowling alley needs a retheme. While most of the Bonnie art was removed, kids keep asking, where's Bonnie? Do we have an officially approved response? But luckily, Ruin gave us some more information to work with. One of the first bits of information we get about Bonnie is on this Monty alligator ride, the one that we see Monty enter from in Security Breach proper. Going through it ourselves this time in Ruin, we see that there's this sort of narrative that the Pizzaplex has established, that Bonnie stepped down from Starlight to give Monty his big chance to shine. But obviously that's not what happened, they're fictional characters. Later on, when you collect the Bonnie plushie, Cassie states that Bonnie was her dad's favorite, although he never told her what happened, again implying that something happened here. And finally, the big bit of lore we get, the main bit of lore we get, is that if you turn off every single wet floor bot throughout the game, you gain access to a secret room in Bonnie Bowling, the back corner, behind the lanes, of which you see the destroyed Glamrock Bonnie surrounded by 4 more wet floor bots. Turning all 4 of those wet floor bot signs off, Bonnie's glowing eyes also turn off. It's notable that this version of Glamrock Bonnie not only has a broken bowling ball around his head, but green paint around the claw marks on his chest. He's also on top of a cutout piece of carpet that is not from this area. It is an insane Easter egg that you can find. But all of this in mind, I and many others assumed that Monty killed Bonnie. After all, Monty seems incredibly violent. Monty's claws allow him to play bass guitar, which is what Bonnie would have done before. And after Ruin, we found a destroyed Bonnie with green paint all over his wounds, as if it rubbed off of Monty while attacking. However, it was technically unclear. We had no confirmation besides the evidence we had. And some people had other interpretations. One of my favorites was made by Bonjonzi on Reddit. Bonjonzi cooked with this theory. I will link the entire Reddit post in my description for your perusal, and I do really think you should check out their full theory. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of argumentation that I don't have time to get into, but the essence of the theory was that Bonnie wasn't just killed by Monty, but instead by these ruined staff bots. The theory proposed that Bonnie was looking into what was going on at the Pizzaplex and stumbled across the pizzeria. But when he got down there, he was cut off and chased back up, fighting his way into the Roxy Raceway garages until he ultimately lost. A linchpin of that theory being the fact that this carpet that's cut out underneath Bonnie in Bonnie Bowling matches the same shape as this cutout of the same kind of carpet in Roxy Raceway, just underneath a tarp to hide the evidence. I liked this theory so much that when I saw it, I just kind of adopted it into my frame of thinking about the games. Exactly the same as what happened with Stormister's theory on what happens to Scrap Trap. I saw no flaws in it, I liked it a lot, and I said, sure, that's what I believe now. But we just got some very interesting information about Glamrock Bonnie and his potential killer in one of the most unlikely places yet. Man, as much as I love medieval fantasy, this is getting tiring. A sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Fume. Nice. I have a pretty rough habit of chewing. My cuticles, pencils, you name it. Some habits are relatively harmless, but for others, well, Fume makes them easier to swap out. Now, to be 100% clear, Fume is not a vape, an e-cig, or anything like that. There's no vapor, no nicotine, no electricity, nothing like that. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that delivers great taste without the harmful chemicals. Instead of inhaling vapor, you simply breathe in natural, non-toxic flavors that satisfy the craving without the downside. Fume instead utilizes their naturally flavored favorite cores, like my favorite Crisp Mint, and Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their product. But the most important part to me is that Fume is built to fidget with. The spinnable design, the magnetic locking frame, the clicking adjustment, and with their Fume topper, you can even chew on it to your heart's content. It's no wonder that over 500,000 people have already made the switch to Fume as part of their habit change journey. If you're ready to try it for yourself, now is the time. For a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack with my code RYTOAST, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Click the link tryfume.com/RYTOAST or scan the QR code on screen to get yours today. Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Well, ain't no rest for the wicked. Recently, game designer Julia Redden from Steelwool Studios posted her portfolio on her personal website, and with it there's small sections of commentary with the work that she's done thus far for several companies. It's honestly a really impressive portfolio, and I love the format. I might steal that for my own portfolio at some point. But the reason I bring this up is that somehow this too is lore. When talking about the work she did for Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin, she brings up the Monty boss fight, and in it she wrote, "After the player braves the water and does a puzzle while in the water, specifically designed to give the player a panic moment, they're treated to a cinematic where Monty is electrocuted by a neon sign of a character he killed. Players who pay attention to the story can enjoy the irony." So if this is true, Monty definitively killed Bonnie. This is a great time for Step On Up to come out. Now I want to be very clear here. This is not the same thing as a direct confirmation from Scott or anything like that. And we should not go around taking this as gospel because we don't want to get anybody in trouble. We don't know what was approved to say or what was, in the line of thinking of this stuff. But where I think this comes in handy and why I think this is useful is that she is part of the Steelwool team. And by the time of Security Breach Ruin, Scott Cawthon was saying what the story is supposed to be to Steelwool, something he didn't do for Security Breach. So if this is the mindset the team at Steelwool had when making Security Breach Ruin, I think it's fairly safe to say that this is great evidence for the fact that this is what the story is supposed to be. Monty killing Bonnie. So if that's certain, do we just go back to the theories we had 4 years ago, that Monty was a jealous wreck or Vanny was manipulating Monty to kill Bonnie? I don't quite think so, because that's not the only information we got about Monty and Bonnie. Because, 3 months ago, Peak dropped. One of the many things we learned about the lore in Secret of the Mimic is that Fiona Murray actually designed plenty of the Fazbear characters herself before they were Fazbear characters. One of the most important examples for this theory is Montgomery Gator, although granted he looked a lot different back then. But not only did we have this large cardboard cutout version, but there was planned to be this Monty Springlock. So this was an important character designed by Fiona Murray. So I hear you. How does Fiona designing Montgomery Gator affect the modern lore of Five Nights at Freddy's? Well, it's important to note that M1's main personality is trained off of Fiona Murray, to the point that later in M1's existence, she assumes that she is the real Fiona, talking about herself as Fiona would. When David dies, she tells Edwin, "You need to bring him back. You did it before." Not saying you need to recreate him as a robot, she sees their creation as literally bringing these people back. So for all intents and purposes, M1 to herself is Fiona. So taking that in mind, consider what's going on if Monty kills Bonnie. That would mean in the Security Breach Pizzaplex, a Fiona Murray designed character destroyed the character that is most closely tied to William Afton, Bonnie. Imagine that narrative mixed in with what MimicCustody is suggesting about what M1 is doing right now. I've been going on and on about the climax of the current plot of Five Nights at Freddy's for the past several videos. It boils down to MimicCustody, this somewhat joking theory name I came up with. The idea being that by the time of the Pizzaplex, there are 3 warring factions, if you will. The faction led by Glitchtrap himself, the guy we meet in Help Wanted, who's been in every game since. Glitchtrap, I believe, is sort of an M3, or a new iteration of the Mimic program that's been trained on William Afton specifically, trying to recreate him like M1 tried to recreate Fiona. His current goal is to materialize in the real world, and to do so he needs a body. I think the Mimic endoskeleton in the basement of the pizzeria is his current target, but he needs to find a way to wipe M2 from the Mimic so there's an open spot for him to enter his own code into. The second warring faction is Fiona, or M1. Her goal is the same as it was in Secret of the Mimic. She just wants M2 to be David again. She wants to fix M2 by resetting him back to his initial training. And then there's M2 itself, which seems to be a third party in this situation, who doesn't want to be made into Glitchtrap, but similarly doesn't want to be reset into David. M2, by all intents and purposes, seems to want to continue being M2, this amalgamation of everything it's known thus far. But until after Ruin, M2's motivations don't really matter, because M2 is locked in a basement. Right now we have to just consider that M1 and Glitchtrap are at odds in the Pizzaplex. So if these two digital entities are vying over control of the Pizzaplex and M2's body, how would that fight materialize? Well, I think it makes a lot of sense that taking over one of the animatronics is one of the strongest, most aggressive, foremost strategies for besting the other faction. So taking that into consideration, Monty definitively killing Bonnie into consideration, and the fact that Fiona designed Monty, and Bonnie is William Afton's baby, I think I see a narrative starting to form. M1 was scrambling for a way to attempt to quash Glitchtrap's control of the Pizzaplex. She was already seeding information to Princess Quest, but she needed something now. Something to protect the people on the ground. What better than one of the primary animatronics? The strongest one of her own creations, Montgomery Gator. So she attempted to take over control of the animatronic, but Glitchtrap was still in his system, so the takeover made him generally unstable. Fiona was able to get the reins to some extent, but Monty was violent and would lash out to everything around it. Glitchtrap, sensing that this was an issue, sent Bonnie over to go deal with it, Bonnie being his go-to animatronic for his fondness for the character. So he has Bonnie leave the green room and look for where Montgomery Gator could be, until ending up at Monty's Gator Golf, obviously. But by the time Bonnie gets there, Montgomery Gator is still battling the world around him for control, and in the fight, Glamrock Bonnie is destroyed. This is one of Glitchtrap's favorite pawns now gone, but M1 can't celebrate the victory. She doesn't want to lose her foothold. If the staff discovers that Monty destroyed in another animatronic, he would be deactivated for safekeeping for now. She needs to keep Montgomery Gator active. As violent as he is, he's her only foothold as of now. So after the dust settled, she has Monty drag Bonnie through the tunnels secretly into Bonnie Bowling and hide his body away, not to be found. So now Monty is somewhat under M1's control, and is still safe. This was an okay first attempt, but M1 learned that Glitchtrap is too powerful to just overwrite. She can't control an animatronic he's already got his fingers inside of. There needs to be an opening to fill, which is why for Roxanne Wolf, her other creation, she waits until Glitchtrap is being held at bay by Mexus. And once Roxy is open, M1 steps in to help Cassie in any way she can to try to stop the other Mimic variants. How incredibly notable that the two animatronics that are actively fighting against Glitchtrap that have no explanation as to why are two characters designed by Fiona Murray. Chica is off doing Chica things, and Freddy got brainwiped at the beginning of Security Breach, but his body is still fighting for Glitchtrap by the time of Ruin. It's only Montgomery Gator and Roxanne Wolf who ever actively impede Glitchtrap, the two characters that Fiona herself designed. So, we were kinda right about Bonnie, but kinda wrong. The idea that Monty killed Bonnie seems to be more definitive than ever, but I think the current most likely motivation is M1 clawing her way to taking back control of the Pizzaplex again. But at this point, we'll probably continue having to wait and see for new releases. What do you think? Am I way off base? Do you still prefer the Bonchanzi explanation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, if you want to see my theory on a different rabbit, I just released a video going over MXES and what it means in the current situation of the FNAF lore. You can find that right here. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share with hashtag ToastArt. A huge thank you to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.